This is genuinely shocking as Svi Mykhailiuk has been able to nab a long-term contract with the Utah Jazz. But not shocking in the fact that Svi Mykhailiuk was able to nab a contract, but due to the fact that his role with the Celtics was not that high, and he was able to secure a long-term deal, which is absolutely fantastic for Svi Mykhailiuk in his quest to be on the NBA. But Brad Stevens had an open roster spot, and he could have brought back a guy in Svi Mykhailiuk. So we're going to be discussing, was that even a possibility? Could that have even happened? All of that and more on this episode of Celtics Digest. I'm Bruce Velez. You guys have been absolutely fantastic, showing your love, showing your support, hitting that like and subscribe button. So if you want to make sure you stay in the Celtics algorithm and get the daily news around this Celtics team, let's keep hitting on that like button. But without further ado, let's dive into the topic at hand. Make sure to grab a snack. And like I mentioned in the introduction, Svi Mykhailiuk has gotten a contract and he will be heading over to Utah to go play with ex-Celtics general manager Danny Ainge. And maybe Danny Ainge saw something out of Svi Mykhailiuk in Boston, kind of believed in him. Maybe Brad Stevens gave him a little bit of a ring or two, told him about Svi Mykhailiuk, and that is what made this deal get worked on. But ultimately, I am shocked that Svi Mykhailiuk was able to nab this type of contract, and I'm also very, very excited that he was able to. So we're gonna dive in and look at this here for you guys. So first off, as we saw from Adrian Wojnarowski this afternoon at 3:45, we saw that free agent Svi Mykhailiuk has agreed on a 4-year, $15 million contract with the Utah Jazz, according to his agent Michael Lachitsky of SIG Sports. He played 41 games for the NBA champion Boston Celtics last season, playing in about half of their contests. He also got some run throughout the playoffs, was able to play in the finals as well. But Svi didn't have the biggest role on this Celtics team. He was brought in to be a shooter, a spark plug off this bench. And ultimately, at the start of the season, I thought he could have worked his way into that rotation as that backup two guard. Unfortunately for Svi, though, the shooting off the bench was already provided from guys Peyton Pritchard and Sam Hauser, so that role had shrunk a little bit for Svi throughout the season. But when we did see Svi Mykhailiuk out on the court, he did have some nice flashes. We want to look at his stats from the season now. Obviously, on the minutes per game, he is doing fantastic with these numbers. 4 points per game on 1.2 rebounds, 41% shooting from the field, and 39% shooting from three. I want you guys to pay attention to those shooting stats and those shooting numbers because that's what Svi provides for his game. He's going to be that spark shooter. That's what his style of basketball is. And as we Celtics fans know, once that ball touches Svi Mykhailiuk's hands, it is coming off. This guy is a perfect catch and shoot guy, and that is what he brings to this team into Utah in the NBA. Now, Svi has had a run with a multiple amount of teams in the NBA. He's had runs with the Lakers, Hornets, Pistons, Knicks, Celtics, and now Utah Jazz. And Svi is a guy who has been fighting for a roster spot and fighting for a chance to play his whole entire career. Basically, starting out at the bottom and having to compete and trying to find a role in every city every single year. Now, with Utah, he does have some long term security, which is absolutely fantastic for a guy in Svi Mykhailiuk. Having that 4 years, $15 million a year, around $3.5 to $4 million a year is solid for a player in Svi Mykhailiuk. A little bit above that veteran minimum contract, but not too much that it's a little bit of an overpay. And Svi Mykhailiuk can bring some great shooting to a young Utah Jazz team. I know Utah has a weird roster construction built right now with some of their players, but I do like what they are cooking up, and I think Danny Ainge is kind of just buying in on a bunch of players and hoping that some can blossom and turn out to be some superstars. And whoever doesn't really pan out, whoever he has to move off of, he can in the future. But Svi is a guy from the Celtics team who will be leaving, who will not be returning back to Boston, and is, the first casualty really from this champion squad to not return. I am shocked that he received this big of a contract, but I am very happy for a guy in Svi Mykhailiuk, and I wish him nothing but the best of luck in his career with Utah. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section. How do you guys feel about Svi Mykhailiuk leaving and going off to Utah? Do you think the Celtics could have used him, brought him back, used him as a shooter off the bench? Drop down your thoughts down below in the comment section. Next, we're going to be diving in and talking about why I believe that Svi Mykhailiuk was not brought back to this roster. Now, like I mentioned, this Boston Celtics championship team did have 15 players currently under contract. And with the Celtics having a first round pick and using that first round pick on selection Baylor Shireman, The knocking was on the door for one of those players on this Celtics roster, if not multiple, to leave. Now, Celtics fans, including myself, kind of speculated that maybe some of these guys would have taken some bigger money elsewhere, and that could have led to some maybe of the other role players coming back on cheaper deals. We did see Luke Cornett, who did turn down more money, confirmed by Noah Dalzell to come back to Boston. We did see Xavier Tillman test his waters a bit, but then ultimately returned to Boston on a 2-year veteran minimum contract. And we also saw Neemias Queta get that a little bit of an extension of a deal where it was a little bit of a bump than what he would have gotten off of his team exception, or excuse me, yeah, what a little bit of a bump of what he would have gotten for his, you know, team extension, but he ultimately got that in a long-term deal. Now, with the Boston Celtics team and this roster, like I mentioned, they had 14 guys. They were going to have 14 guys. So one of these guys was going to be cut, and one of these guys was going to be let go. Now, as of right now, Oshae Brissett and Svi Mykhailiuk were the only two players from the Celtics team that no one had really seen make any moves or heard anything about. Now, personally, I thought that Oshae Brissett, because he did play more minutes in the finals, it did present a bigger role for the Boston Celtics. I thought that he would have already been signed or would have been signed before Svi Mykhailiuk. I also believe that I would have seen Oshae Brissett get a contract from somebody in the NBA. Personally, I like Svi Mykhailiuk. I think he's a very great player, but I thought that with his role trying to fight for a spot in the league and him kind of falling to the end of the rotation for the Boston Celtics for the majority of the season, being in that, third rotation for this team for a majority of the season, maybe he'd go over to Europe and maybe he'd test out the waters there, especially with the new CBA rules, with seeing these guys like Tyus Jones and Gary Trent Jr. taking some pay cuts. I definitely expected a guy like Svi Mykhailiuk maybe to pursue NBA basketball in a different direction. But I am happy for him. I'm glad that he's staying, and I'm glad that he's staying in the NBA, and I'm glad that he did get a long-term deal because he is well deserving of it. And I think that he can provide some great shooting for Utah off the bench. Personally, from seeing Svi Mykhailiuk play against that Pacers team where the Celtics did beat the franchise record of most points in history last year, I was there. I got to see Svi Mykhailiuk play, got to see him jack up those shots, and maybe some of them weren't going in, but man, oh man, does he show the effort? Does he show that he can let it fly? And if it gets going for Svi Mykhailiuk, it is over. Especially for a team like Utah, who could be towards the bottom of the Western Conference near the end of the season. Maybe a guy like Svi Mykhailiuk in the last 20 to 25 games gets that big opportunity to start and gets to show out who he is, and maybe gets to work himself up off that contract. So then Utah can maybe trade him in the future. If not, he's still a valuable shooter that can provide spacing and scoring for this Utah team off the bench. And I think that's what ultimately is just an A plus for Danny Ainge. I think this is a great pickup. Now, like I mentioned, the Boston Celtics do have a open roster spot, and that roster spot will not be filled by Svi Mykhailiuk. Now, could that roster spot be filled by Oshae Brissett? We'll have to wait and see. But ultimately, at this moment, the Celtics do have 14 guys under roster, and I do believe by selecting Baylor Shireman and going in that direction of another scorer, another shooter off the bench, that's what led the Celtics to not really necessarily be bought into Svi. I think Baylor Shireman presents that role that Svi Mykhailiuk already brought for this team. Baylor Shireman just a bigger, more versatile defender that can be a more physical body than Svi Mykhailiuk is, but still present the playmaking and scoring that Svi Mykhailiuk does, with being, very a couple years younger as well, being a rookie. So all those pluses, I think, give the value for Baylor Shireman being that replacement for Svi and why he is not returning. But ultimately, just very, very excited that Svi is able to get a job somewhere else in the NBA. But let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section. If you missed our previous video today, we broke down the dancing bear, Guerschon Yabusele, who he could be wanting a return, maybe possibly to the Celtics as well as that last roster spot. If you're interested in that or any more topics relating around this Celtics team, check down in the description, check out the channel. You have daily Celtics content, like I mentioned, going up every single day for you guys. So if you want to make sure you stay up to date on everything, and I mean everything revolving around this team, hit that subscribe button. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. I really do appreciate all the support you guys have been showing us. I'm sorry about the weekly stream not happening on Wednesday. We're going to have to change the day, I believe, to get the streams going back up again. There has been some more busy stuff on my side of things, but I do want to still provide that for you guys. I still want to have that as an outlet. So once I start working through it, I definitely will let you guys know on that end. But thank you guys so much for showing your support. We really do appreciate it over here on Celtics Digest. Godfrey and I, you guys have been absolutely killing it, and we can't do it with your guys' help. So once again, we really do appreciate you guys tuning in, showing your support, and thank you guys so much for tuning in for this episode of Celtics Digest. I'm Bruce Velez. Have a great rest of your day, and go Boston Celtics, baby.